few quick notes before we get into the video. Number 1, everything in this video is for entertainment purposes only. The views expressed are my opinion based on publicly available information. Number 2, every person covered in this video is a public figure and therefore open to critique and commentary. However, they are not open to abuse, bullying, or harassment, so don't do that. Number 3, Estee has recently expressed a desire to step away from the trad influencer life. However, you can't build a brand online that actively pushes harmful agendas and then back away as though nothing happened. You can't bake your happy tres leches cakes and celebrate Cinco de Mayo when you actively helped elect a president who is harming immigrants. I get it, your dad probably taught you that behavior was okay when he allegedly stole thousands of dollars from working class people and then tried to walk away from it like it never happened. More on that later. So Estee, today we're going to talk about it. Number 4, Estee isn't the only tradwife worth discussing here. There is a whole network of propaganda at play. So let's discuss.
Everything is fake. I know that sounds super cynical, but if you haven't caught on to that yet in this life, then I need you to open your eyes and look around you.
So today I broke a Twitter bot that was pretending to be a Democrat.
I hypothetically was just offered a lot of money to endorse a political party. Like millions.
You need to ask yourself who has motives, what their motives are, who has something to gain, and who doesn't. You need to look at the facts on the paper.
In 2018, a Facebook page by the name of America Progress Now encouraged left-wing voters to abandon the Democratic Party and to vote third party instead during the midterm elections. Using socialist memes and rhetoric and claiming to have the support of Bernie Sanders, they urged left-wing voters to consider candidates outside of the Democratic Party, specifically in a number of close races. There was just one problem though. America Progress Now wasn't a leftist group that actually cared about the Green Party gaining seats during the midterm. Many of the candidates who were quoted and promoted by America Progress Now had never heard of this group. In fact, the true identity behind the America Progress Now page was a group called Rally Forge, a conservative marketing firm administered by Jake Hoffman, Connor Clegg, and Colton Duncan, who also, interestingly enough, served as Facebook administrators for the conservative think tank, Turning Point USA. Where have we seen them recently? Their goal wasn't to uplift leftist and socialist candidates, it was to sow discord in the Democratic Party and split the vote, which would benefit the more unified Republicans during the midterms. Turning Point Action, which is related to Turning Point USA, paid Rally Forge $700,000 for work supporting Trump and opposing Biden, and another $400,000 for work on the U.S. Senate runoff races in Georgia. And in 2020, this dynamic duo would work together again to create America's very own domestic troll farm, where they paid American minors to use their social media accounts to spread misinformation about the 2020 election. So, what does this all have to do with Estee? What's up everyone, it's Ashley and welcome to my channel. A couple months ago, I decided to look up Estee out of curiosity, just to look up some more information, and I found myself down the craziest rabbit hole of all time. I went down this rabbit hole and I would like to take you with me because this was absolutely wild. Every time that I thought I was done researching this video, a new fact or a new piece of information would show up and down an entirely new rabbit hole I would go. Estee and her entire family, in my opinion, are con artists who have allegedly scammed people out of thousands of dollars. Allegedly, and in my opinion, are my two favorite words in this video. But they have allegedly lied their way into positions of power in our government. And their connection to Turning Point USA, as well as the right's online propaganda machine, is alarming, and we should be looking at that more critically. We should look more critically at the people selling us a lifestyle on social media, not only to avoid the possibility of playing into the hands of an unsavory agenda, but at the very least, so that we can make informed choices. Who are we listening to? Why are they saying what they're saying? And who benefits from what they're saying? Are their words lining up with their actions? So, with that being said, let's take a deeper dive into the TikTok Tradwife Estee Williams. Are you listening to me, Neo? Or were you looking at the woman in the red dress? Estee Williams is a 26-year-old self-proclaimed tradwife. She came onto the scene in 2022 with recipe videos and acting videos at first. It wasn't until she started posting videos critiquing feminism and promoting a tradwife lifestyle that she started to take off. From the beginning, she was cosplaying being a wife when she wasn't one at all. Alright, let's discuss the timeline of Estee and Connor. They began dating on September 4th, 2020. They moved in together around December 17th, 2021. They got engaged in March of 2022, and then they were married in January of 2023. So you can see there are articles here from 2022 where she calls herself a wife or Connor her husband, even though that wasn't true. Even before she was married, there were multiple articles referring to her as a wife and referring to Connor as her husband, even though that's not the case. So that was kind of the first lie that this particular platform was built on. The two of them saying that they were ultra-traditional, ultra-conservative, were living together outside of wedlock, which I don't know about you, but the conservative Christians that I knew would find that to be a bit scandalous. And even if they didn't find it scandalous, well, you're still lying by calling yourself a wife when you've just been living with your partner for like a couple months. And in some of her earlier comments on her content, she wasn't really doing herself any favors in denying that this was a fantasy cosplay, claiming that this lifestyle was PJs and no makeup most days, which she would later really walk away from.
You said you don't ever wear sweatpants?
I have one pair and I don't wear it often, no.
Estee today will talk about how you need to make sure you're done up every single day and that you have to look good for your husband, because she knows that that kind of content pisses people off. But in her early comments, she was bragging about being in pajamas all day long. So again, the image she's portraying in these articles versus who she lets herself out to be in the comments is contradictory. Like I said in her earlier videos, Estee was a lot more transparent and cavalier in her comments. Estee today will go on Dr. Phil and say things like, oh, well, if something happens to my husband, I'll just move back home under my father's roof. She presents herself as a vocal dissenter of divorce, even going so far as to suggest that perhaps even cheating should be absolutely illegal. That is Estee now. But Estee in her early days of TikTok, in some of her very first comments, when asked what her backup was, she said this: to take all of his money, presumably in divorce, like an evil feminist. But speaking of Connor, Estee appears to be encouraging Connor to start his own social media platform, focusing on saving masculinity in the West.
Hey, what's going on, guys? My name is Connor Williams. I'm on here to talk about masculinity in America and how we have weak men in our society nowadays, unfortunately. You guys all might know my wife, Estee Williams. She's a trad wife. We live a very traditional lifestyle. And I just want to get out here and say, you know, men don't know how to be leaders and protectors and providers of the household that they should be. And I think it's unfortunate, and I think that, you know, it's a real problem in society nowadays, and it needs to be addressed.
What do you think about modern feminism?
I think it hurts a lot of things. I think it hurts masculinity in general. I think it hurts the traditional roles that we live. I think that, you know, and I think it hurts masculinity because the woman is more the leader than the man.
I believe that they should, our education over here in the U.S. should help the U.S. or should help South Africa, and should help the Iraq and the Asian countries.
Thank you very much, South Carolina.
Which is hilarious because really this guy, this is the guy that's gonna save masculinity. This guy here in a Snapchat filter who just said a bunch of nothing with no conviction. This is the guy that's gonna save masculinity? Okay. One point that Estee brings up frequently is her inspiration in becoming a tradwife. She claims that it was her non-traditional upbringing that inspired her to want something more traditional. Estee says, I didn't grow up traditional, and I think that plays a big part in my decision to move towards this lifestyle. I grew up in a very hectic household, and my parents got divorced when I was younger. Williams watched her mother work all hours of the day and then come home and cook and clean for the family. I just didn't want to be that wife or mother that went to work full-time and came home and still had to do the cooking and cleaning. She says here she, quote, saw her mom struggle to balance jobs and childcare after divorce. However, in this angel tree event and possible scam that I will be discussing later, Lee and Donna, Estee's parents, were still describing themselves as husband and wife. And this was at the end of 2014 when Estee would have been about 17 and her younger sister 15. By no means children who required, quote, childcare. I just wanted to add that while working on this video, the Allens actually released a new 30th edition book of the special guest this past year. And in this interview here that I'll be playing a little bit of later, they are still referring to each other as husband and wife. So either they're not divorced and Estee is lying, or they are divorced and her parents are lying. Something isn't adding up. Based on what I know, I believe that her sister, Christianne, who has media training, helped her to craft an image and narrative for her brand, and I personally have doubts about the divorce claims. Her parents are still making trips together and celebrating holidays together. Now, sometimes maybe that happens after parents are divorced, but as you'll see, so much of what this family says is questionable. But even if they did get divorced, in 2014, they were still publicly claiming that they were husband and wife. Estee also changes her stance from saying non-traditional to, quote, somewhat traditional for her upbringing.
Well, I was somewhat raised traditional. My mom was a traditional wife until my parents got divorced. And then, of course, that threw our family for a spin.
But the truth is, she had very involved parents who were there for her and her siblings' every need. Conservative Christian values were deeply entrenched in her household, and I believe still are. She was always more traditional than not. The only difference was that her dad was a media and money-obsessed scammer, in my opinion. But that actually falls in line with many modern-day representations of Christianity. Estee has also been very vocal about her conservative values, her support of Trump, and her blue-collar values, which is interesting. One, because Estee and her family, in my opinion, it is clear to see they come from money. And two, her family has a history of allegedly stealing thousands of dollars from actual blue-collar working-class people, which we will get into a bit later. She's alluded to watching her mother struggle to make ends meet, but this family does not appear poor or blue-collar in the least. They apparently were running a 7-figure business while living in a 7-room mansion in Las Vegas. But we'll get to that later. She'll give half-hearted tips based on boomer memes on how to save enough money to live on one income by not buying lattes, while showcasing all of the luxury brands that she's using. Yes, the woman spending $300 on perfume was able to do so because she didn't buy her $8 latte. Check out this very average, struggling to get by, blue-collar family.
So I went from selling $60K a month to $200K a month.
And it's all by upselling.
We are in that stage of making America great again.
And it's all by upselling.
So while Estee was telling us all how we can go down to one income by not buying $8 lattes,
take a look at your house. In America, we love the shiny things. We love the big house, the brand new car, but if you want to prioritize having a homemaker lifestyle and living within a traditional marriage, then you're going to need to make some sacrifices. It's not that bad, really.
In this video here, she mentions that when she was younger, she used to consistently get 22-inch hair extensions, and that would put her in the salon every 3 weeks for 4 years. I looked up the price of hair extensions. That can cost hundreds to thousands of dollars. This family was not really struggling, it appears. She also mentions in this video that she went behind her parents' back and got breast implants. It's very hard to go behind your parents' back to get a surgery when you're not having some sort of money of your own. Breast augmentation is in the thousands of dollars. Now, Estee claims that her first set of implants were free, that she got them as part of a study. However, in all of the information that I've seen from people talking about having the same experience, they claim that while the implants themselves were free, they still had to pay for the surgery and for the anesthesia. It was just the implant itself that was deducted from the from the overall surgery. I haven't found anyone who said that they got it for completely free, but Estee also says that later she had another set of implants put in. She doesn't say if that was part of a study or not, but to have 2 breast augmentations is not cheap. That is not cheap. That is not somebody who was really worried about where their food is coming from. That would take a lot of $8 lattes to save up. I wanted to be clear here that I'm not shaming Estee for having implants. I believe it is a person's choice to get surgery or not, do whatever makes you happy. However, what I am critiquing and questioning here are her claims that she, quote, went behind her parents' backs and that they were, quote, free. Estee states multiple times that growing up, her dad pushed her into being a performer. In this video here, she mentions that when her dad saw that she was into fitness and bodybuilding, that he really pushed her to get into modeling.
My dad saw my interest in the fitness industry and he wanted to put me in fitness modeling.
By looking for sponsors like Bang Energy, who, surprise, according to Estee, require implants.
You need sponsors. Well, what about Bang Energy? Bang Energy, what's required? Full face of makeup, breast implants, booty shorts.
Now here's my opinion. I personally would not be surprised if her dad actually went ahead and got the implants for her. But she can't just come right out and say that for her trad image. That would just be like way too much. But I wouldn't be surprised if that were the case, given the fact that he was the one pushing her to get sponsors and that the sponsors required implants. That seems too coincidental to me. She also mentions here that she got out of the Lululemon phase. Lululemon is a very expensive brand. So she had the cost of the extensions. She apparently was entering pageants growing up. They appeared to constantly be going to the Jefferson Hotel. I lived in Richmond for a long time, so I know the Jefferson Hotel. It's fancy as fuck. So going to having dining there and having events there, you are either doing something very special or you've got money. She was also showing us her hair and makeup routines, and I took the liberty of looking up all of the products, finding out their costs, and adding them all together. And this is what I came up with. Estee posted this video called Day of Pampering, and I also took the liberty to add up most of what I could find the prices were for everything, just to show that she's got money. She's not struggling. She doesn't even need to save the $8 lattes. So for the highlights in the video, I recognize that salon. Like I just said, I lived in Richmond, Virginia for 5 years. This is her video. This is the salon's Instagrams. The prices on their website listed for the following services are: for the highlights, it is $185, and for a trim, it is $60. She bought a new dry shampoo, which was $32, Arco spray for $36. She also mentions getting a pedicure. I just looked up the average cost. A pedicure is normally around $55. The Kindle that she gets is $139. The dress is about $26. The Dior makeup is $57, and the Huda Beauty lip contour is $21. Already, all of that is over $600, and that is not including the price of the prints, the dinner out, the tip for the hairdresser, because you're supposed to tip your hairdresser, and I don't know if she does that. This day of pampering is over $600. This is not someone who is struggling.
It's not that bad. Really.
I am not shading her for having money and for having luxury brands. I'm shading her for telling young women not to go to college or to work and to cut back on spending to be a housewife when she has never given up a luxury in her life. I'm shading her for presenting herself as knowledgeable in financial matters, or like she too has struggled and figured it out, when she's clearly very wealthy and always has been. I'm shading her for shitting on women who want nice things and choose to work for them and to give themselves the life of their dreams. I'm shading her for pretending to be blue collar and down to earth while telling women to just stop working when she has no idea what it means to struggle.
My point in bringing all this up is that there are various examples of how this family is anything or appears to be anything but blue collar. The dad himself is a self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur. The brother says he makes $30,000.
And it's all by upselling.
And they all seem to be working in on this together. I'm only mentioning the shadiness of this family because I believe that they are all trying to game the system in some way.
I wanted to expand on this a little bit. It really appears to me that Lee is a stage dad and is the one responsible for getting his kids not only into business, but online as well.
She's really, if I might say, Estee, become I call it the poster girl, but she's been on Dr. Phil and these other programs because however, she decided to start promoting. I think she fell in love and said, you know what, I love the idea of being a traditional wife, right, Estee? And she makes beautiful videos and has huge following. And so we've asked her to come on because at the same time, I think her audience will enjoy hearing of the opportunity, to be introduced to the special guest. So Estee, I want to thank you for joining us, especially not feeling well,
Here Sam says it was his dad who told him to start a business, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was his dad behind the camera here trying to bank off of the story. Christianne says her dad started taking her around to business meetings at 10.
What was your start in entrepreneurship?
I'd have to say when I was 10 and my dad started taking me along with some of his business trips and I started learning from him. Fast forward, I didn't really love business then. It was just more like, I can make money.
Estee says he pushed her to be into acting and modeling. Now there isn't anything wrong with having a dad who pushes you to excel, but fame and money seem to be a driving factor for Lee, and this can't be ignored when we look into Estee's sudden rise in popularity. Her sister's extensive knowledge of social media and communications, as well as her relationship to big-time players in the right-wing social media world, cannot be ignored.
Those red pillars are always asking women, what is your relationship to your dad? So, Estee, what is your relationship to your dad?
Hi and welcome. I'm Lee Allen, CEO of Discovery Club.
Hello folks, welcome to Revolutionary Relief, the most exciting pain management product on the market. I'm one of the co-founders.
Hi, I'm Lee Allen, author of The Special Guest. It was 20 years ago that I wrote this story for my children as a keepsake, never dreaming that it would go on to be a national bestseller with movie offers from Hollywood.
Okay, so where to begin with Lee Allen, Estee's father? So, Lee Allen has allegedly stolen thousands of dollars from working class families. The first example that I came across when I was researching this family was when I found a Facebook page for an old landscaping company that he used to own, and I read the reviews that were posted. Before we even get to the reviews, how do I know that this is his page?
Okay, so how do I know that this business belongs to Lee? In the intro to this section, I showed a clip of Lee talking about his book, The Special Guest. I'll be talking about this book a little bit more later on, but for now, I wanted to show you that I was able to access their old webpage for this book through the Wayback Machine. The number for Lee listed here matches Backyard Oasis. I was also able to find this list of Lee's businesses on OpenGov, and Backyard Oasis is also listed here. Oh, and to seal the deal, the only like on all of these posts on the Backyard Oasis page is Sam Allen, Estee's brother,
who was also an entrepreneur.
A big part of my life is entrepreneurship. And I was fortunate enough to start my business when I was in college playing football at the time. And it's now scaled up to a multi-million-dollar business.
And it's all by upselling.
So it's definitely Lee. All right, so here are the reviews. He's a con artist, and I'm assuming by now out of business. We ended up having to take him to court, and we won. Come to find out, when we were at court, a well-known contractor was already there with a lawsuit for non-payment. Lee Allen is a crook. 2 weeks, and the promise to have my patio complete. 4 months later, it was still not complete. Steer clear of this guy. I can't stress it enough, but Lee Allen is a scam artist at its finest. Not only did I once upon a time work for this lying dirtbag, but he also managed to take a lot of money from my family. The best decision you will ever make is by not even trying to have a conversation with this piece of work. He will constantly give you the runaround, and his word means absolutely nothing. I made 3D renderings for Lee Allen a few years ago when he was canvassing the Fox Creek subdivision heavily, and other areas as well. Then he decided not to pay me because his cut wasn't big enough for the jobs after I provided the renderings he used to sell the jobs. If you work work with him, his current company, or his other companies, Dex Unlimited, please be careful. Lee Allen makes his living overpromising and underdeveloping. He took 9 months to build my deck, convinced me to use Geodeck Composite, probably because he received incentives. My design included radius edges. He assured the Geodeck could be curved. 3 months into the project, he was telling me he was trying to find a way to bend it. It was comical watching his merry band of misfits, some teenage boys, build a wooden box out of ply and stick a space heater in one end to heat the Geodeck to make it pliable. Needless to say, it didn't retain its shape and it cracked everywhere. Then he hounded me to collect the final payment. He had a screaming match with my wife after she asked him a simple question and eventually cowered so much he met his foreman down the street and off my property when needing to speak to him. He is a scoundrel in every sense of the word. His foreman would tell me every week how many thousands of dollars in back pay he was owed by Lee Allen. Avoid this contractor at all costs. He is a child playing in the serious adult world of general contracting. It's funny that Lee Allen uses a picture that I designed and built, then after he grossly underestimated the job, decided he didn't have to pay me for it, and then takes credit for it like it was an accomplishment. He stiffed me for $2,500 and he thinks I don't have a life. I wonder how long he would try to collect $2,500 if someone flat out ripped him off. This is a business-to-business debt, Lee. Consumer laws don't apply. And then some comments under the post are, schedule paying me, why don't you try paying your installer for this before you advertise it, or maybe you're a freeloader. So here are a few more reviews from another website. There are multiple employees that are claiming that they were conned out of their money, that they were not paid for their work. And you're gonna sit here, you're gonna get on TikTok, dancing around in your little cowboy boots and your little hat and call yourself a little blue collar princess when your dad has allegedly been stealing from actual working class people. That's a lot. I was curious to see if any of this had been resolved. All of these reviews, most of them appear to be written between 2013, 2015. So I reached out to anyone that I could to find out if they had been paid for what happened. I messaged them privately, and the people who got back to me all said the same thing: a big fat no. They still have not seen their money, although it does appear that some of these issues were resolved in court, which appears to be Lee's second home. According to Lee, he is a serial entrepreneur, a man of many talents. Perhaps there's more than meets the eye. Perhaps this apparent thief who steals from the poor to give to himself could have a heart of gold somewhere. The heart of an artist, or at the very least, a storyteller. Let's talk about the special guest and the very questionable Angel Tree fundraiser that we have here.
Now, I just want to clarify, this Angel Tree fundraiser was also apparently happening at the same time as all of those reviews accusing Lee of stealing thousands of dollars from his workers. So just keep that in mind.
Hi, I'm Lee Allen, author of The Special Guest. It was 20 years ago that I wrote this story for my children as a keepsake.
So, Estee, let's actually start with you. I would love to hear from you, like, if you have a favorite moment or favorite element of the story of the special guest. Do you have a favorite moment or in that story?
Well, actually, my husband and I are just now reading it together.
Okay.
Never read it, so...
Never dreaming that it would go on to be a national bestseller with movie offers from Hollywood.
I couldn't find any information about a movie being optioned based on this book. I have no idea. I didn't see that anywhere online. I only heard it from Lee, and Lee is a very unreliable narrator, which you will see consistently.
While the characters are fictional, I'd like to think the story could be true.
I think this is the motto that he lives his entire life by. I like to think that this story could be true. That's what he thinks anytime he speaks.
Have a wondrous Christmas, and don't forget to be kind to strangers.
Unless those strangers are feminist or blue-collar workers that you don't feel like paying. I wanted to bring this up because in my research, I came across this from their 20-year release of the story.
Okay, here are the details of this prison fellowship, aka the Angel Tree alleged scam. So it says Lee Allen, the author of the popular book The Special Guest, A Christmas Story, and his wife, Donna Allen Campbell, the illustrator for The Special Guest, are sponsoring Angel Tree this Christmas season. The Allens' goal is to raise $100,000 through a promotion called the 12 Days Before Christmas $100,000 Challenge. So that's December 11th, 2014. Still saying they're married. The Allens are pledging all of the net proceeds from the Special Guest book sales beginning Saturday, December 13th through Monday, December 15th to the Angel Tree. After Monday, $1 per every book sold will be donated to the Angel Tree through the remaining 12 days before Christmas. The Special Guest is only available on Amazon.com, and when purchasing the gift edition in print at $9.95, a downloadable copy of this book is included. A downloadable only version of the Special Guest by itself is also available on Amazon for $6.95.
On the surface, it looks like a nice gesture. But what is the theme of our video? Look beneath the surface. What do we already know about Lee? He allegedly has a history of scamming people out of money. Now, like I said, this could be a nice thing to do, but to me, it seems like a cash grab. It seems like using the Angel Tree / prison fellowship to pull at the heartstrings of people who actually do care while garnering himself a nice tax write-off. Now, like I mentioned before, this apparently is happening at the same time that all of those checks are bouncing. Based on all of the information that I've already revealed, as well as more to come, I don't trust anything that this man says. I don't trust anything that he puts out. But let's just say that this were legit, okay? For the first 2 days of this fundraiser, all net proceeds from December 13th to 15th go to the goal of $100,000, followed by $1 per book sold through the remaining 12 days of Christmas. Now, let's just say by a miracle, they met half their goal in those 2 days where all of the net proceeds were going to the Angel Tree. $50,000. That is a lot to make in 2 days, but let's just say, for the sake of this video, let's just say that's happened. And let's just say they were able to meet the other half of this goal by selling the lower priced downloadable version for $6.95. Now, I don't know what the net profits of that would be because I don't know all the details of that. The entire gross income would be $347,500,000. If they were selling the higher priced one, it'd be close to $500,000. Now, that's the gross. I don't know all the details of the net profits, but I would imagine it's a nice big chunk of change, especially if you're just doing the downloadable one where you don't have to actually print anything. It does look like they did something similar the first year that this came out. It says that they sold 6,500 copies of the book for the first edition and that they ended up giving 6,500 to Angel Tree that year. That's a pretty reasonable number, right? This $100,000 is what is part of what makes it really seem very shady to me, in addition to what we already know apparently about Lee. The word's out on whether they made this 100,000 goal or whatever, but something about this is very icky to me. It seems more like a cash grab with a built-in tax deduction.
Because running an alleged for-profit ruse under the guise of an Angel Tree charity instead of paying back the workers he apparently stole from is how Lee seems to enjoy spending his holiday season.
Their Facebook page for the Christmas Guest and for this little fundraiser is no longer available. They still had their Pinterest up, so I was able to find what they were posting, and it's still really shady. It's like in one post they say they're helping 300,000 kids, in another they're saying they're helping 1 million kids or close to 1 million kids. It just seems off to me. Now, here's the thing with Lee. Maybe he made the money and maybe he was able to donate to the Angel Tree. I personally think that perhaps he was exploiting underprivileged kids for profit while also allegedly not paying the workers that he hires. That's pretty awful. So so awful that he apparently did it again. So now we're going to move on to the next business adventure, which included Estee as well as Estee's sister, Christianne. In this video here, Estee briefly mentions moving to Vegas and having a reality show that they tried to film. This is that time period. So a brief overview of the Discovery Club. It was a subscription box meant for CBD products. They make a point to mention how revolutionary this product is, especially for helping children in pain. Using sick children to promote their seemingly unregulated products, let's just give these people the benefit of the doubt and say the CBD they had was regulated and it was working miracles. Wouldn't you want to get that product to as many sick children as possible? Wouldn't you want to work to have legislation and research to be able to help these kids? Not if you're Lee Allen. You would rather start an MLM. And here, I found this here for his investors and part of the business plan, I guess. You would want to start an MLM and exit with $100 million in the next 24 months. There was a child who was super sick that they featured on their Instagram page.
The doctor told us that he had weeks to live, and he's running and jumping and playing.
Shortly after this interview here, just like a month or so after, this kid died. And a year later, with the hashtag healing, Lee and his family, this is Christianne and the kid, I blurred out their face, using this kid's image to still try to promote it with the hashtag of healing after this kid has died. I don't even know if Lee and Christianne and all of them knew. It seems pretty insensitive to me to put a picture of this child that died with the hashtag healing to sell your product, to sell your MLM. Listen to how much Christianne knows and cares about this business.
What happens is you open up your box and you're gonna have a pamphlet, and we give you a promo card inside of it too. So not only are you getting an education, we also, I actually don't know what the fuck I'm saying.
So this is from a podcast that she did. Apparently it was also a YouTube video, but I couldn't find that video anywhere. This is where they're talking about their 6 or 7 bedroom mansion. Again, none of the people from the businesses that they've worked on have been paid. They're just continually scamming, continually taking money, and continuing to live a high life, no pun intended on that one, but continuing to live a life of luxury while stealing from other people and while exploiting kids who have died on your page to promote your MLM. Give me a break. But apparently she learned a lot from her dad. This business, the Discovery Club, mysteriously disappeared, and Christianne went back east to go work for Trump and Giuliani. And guess what? In an article that I'll be sharing later about Christianne and her apparent lies and shadiness, it's revealed that the people who were working with the Allens to put together this Discovery box apparently were also never paid. I want to clarify my stance while talking about CBD. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not negating that perhaps CBD has medical benefits. I also imagine that if you had a child who was suffering immensely, you would try anything you could to help them. However, many of these products are unregulated and don't always contain what they say they do. And while Christianne can talk a big game about caring about these kids, their actions show, in my opinion, that money and creating an MLM based on these unregulated products was their main focus. And the business just disappeared. Where is Christianne's passion for helping sick children with, quote, life-changing CBD products? It appears to be nowhere. And in fact, since this venture, she has gone on to do interviews where she appears to show great disdain for marijuana.
It's an interesting show, and it's genius how they placed it. You know, I don't endorse all their shows. You know, I think Elon Musk took a hit of marijuana with him during his show.
But that is not all that Lee has up his sleeve. Now we're gonna move into a couple other businesses that Lee had or potentially still has. All right, so the Patriot Cafe and podcast is one of the many ventures that we have here. This is a clip of the website from the Wayback Machine. The Patriot Cafe is deep state roast CBD coffee. All right. He also was hosting a podcast at this time called The Second Revolution. Where have we heard that term before?
We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
Podcast episode names include The Election Must Be Overturned and Trump Reinstalled. 2 shootings in a week. What an amazing coincidence. False flags, anyone? An apparent con man with an overzealous love of Trump. How far does it go, though? Again, this is why it's a family deep dive, okay? I think that they're all in this together in some way. I don't think that Estee just fell into being a Tradwife influencer. I think her family helped. That's my opinion. They all have media training or are working in media in some way. One of the last things I'm going to mention about Lee is this president painting that he put on. So this interview here that he's doing is with his former wife, who was commissioned to make a painting of Trump, and she got to meet Trump, and Trump signed it. And so they were trying to like make a website, I think, where people could buy a copy of that painting.
What I really believe that I felt in the highest office of our nation is the presence of God.
Interesting.
And that was so thrilling.
That's quite a profound statement that you're making there, though.
Well, it was so thrilling, and I really wasn't looking for it. It just happened, which, you know, allows me to really know that what I felt was authentic and true. And it gives me great comfort to know that God is in the Oval Office.
How did Estee's mom, Donna, get to meet Donald Trump? How far does this deep dive go with this family? Also, quick aside, I haven't really talked much about Donna. She has her own social media programs, like she has her own YouTube channel. She mostly does painting, but she is also apparently working on her son's business where he makes $30,000 a day. And surprise! Another member of the Allens family has extensive media training, apparently. I wonder how Estee does it all, really. Okay, so the final member of the Allens family that I'm gonna go into more detail about is Christianne Allen. So who is Christianne? Christianne is Estee's sister. She is a Turning Point USA ambassador. Christianne's LinkedIn at the time of recording this describes her as working in strategic communications and media. One of her LinkedIn recommendations states, Christianne personally met with me to develop digital strategies for my organization. Immediately, I was impressed by her knowledge, focus, and positive energy. She is open-minded and listened intently. Christianne gave me new ideas, alternatives, and professional advice. I requested that she review my current digital footprint and make recommendations. Christianne selected new graphics and suggested a whole new business plan. Anyone who is serious about success in today's digital world would benefit from her acumen and professional services. So clearly she knows how to market, produce, and achieve success in today's digital world. I wonder where Estee learned it all from. Where to begin with Christianne and the lies she allegedly told in order to gain positions of power in our current government.
Hey everybody, welcome back to TPSA Live. I'm Connor Clegg, the producer of The Charlie Kirk Show.
You may remember Connor Clegg from our intro when we were talking about the fake America Progress Now page, the fake leftist page that was encouraging voters to sway from the Democratic Party and vote third party. Connor Clegg was one of the people allegedly behind that page, working with Rally Forge and working with Turning Point Action. And so here he is with Christianne. Everything is coming, kind of brings everything a little bit more full circle, I think.
This is Christianne Allen, is that right? Christianne,
Yes.
tell us a little bit about yourself. I neglected to tell the people.
All right, my name's Christianne Allen. I used to handle Mayor Rudy Giuliani's comms for 2 years. I'm now at Getter.
Love Getter.
Fastest growing social media platform in history, and that everyone needs to get their intellectual property off of Twitter and over on Getter. So hit me up, Christianne Allen, happy to take care of that for you.
So who is Christianne? So most of the information that I have about Christianne is going to be coming from this article from Politico. When the article first came out, Giuliani, and I believe Christianne too, they were denouncing Politico, saying it was garbage. But now when Politico says something nice about Christianne, she like links it in her profile and celebrates it. So it doesn't matter if it's true, it just matters if it's praising her, apparently. So yeah, the article is The Mystery of Rudy Giuliani's Spokeswoman. Meet Christianne Allen, the 20-year-old college student who speaks for President Trump's personal lawyer. For the past 3 months, the Trump world has been both abuzz and baffled by Christianne Allen, a little-known Instagram personality who became Rudy Giuliani's director of communications in September. She accompanies him wherever he goes, recently appearing by his side in Ukraine, where he's working on a documentary defending himself against accusations that he ran a malicious campaign to get a U.S. ambassador fired. She's his media strategist, technology consultant, and the employee who helps field reporters' daily onslaughts of inquiries, or at least tries to do so. Numerous people Politico spoke with, from her family to her friends to the people who've met her, praised Allen's remarkable maturity and poise, a trait they said she exhibited in her early teenage years. Even so, some of her friends privately wonder how she found herself in such a sensitive position. In an email interview, Allen said that she got the job after several rounds of interviews that included incredibly challenging questions and multiple phone calls with his staff, with Giuliani himself expressing that I had the necessary skills and leadership to fill the position. She did not elaborate further, but Allen's Twitter bio, LinkedIn, and old personal website lists an array of suitable credentials: representative of the Trump Victory Finance Committee, video columnist for the Daily Caller, spokeswoman for Trump's 2016 presidential campaign, executive director of the Middle Eastern Women's Coalition. According to representatives of these entities, these titles are embroidered at best and completely untrue at most. She is, however, an ambassador for both Turning Point USA and Liberty University's Falkirk Centers. But now Giuliani relies on a woman who stands accused of being a serial exaggerator and who struggled to answer basic questions about how she became the communications and right-hand woman of the lawyer and fixer for the President of the United States. Christianne Allen, or Anne as she was known by some in high school, first appeared in Trump's outer orbit in October 2015. A 16-year-old from Midlothian, Virginia, she volunteered to help run Trump's campaign as an intern. She got the gig because she went around telling everybody that she was George Allen's niece, said a former Trump Virginia campaign official, referring to the former Virginia governor and senator. The official discovered that it was completely untrue.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
I would introduce her to other people as George Allen's niece, and then I guess she got in front of someone who was actually related to George Allen, and she corrected herself then. 2 other former campaign officials corroborated that she made these claims or played along, so she lied about being related to the governor of Virginia at the time. Yeah, listen to some of these claims she's making here in this podcast. They sound extremely exaggerated to me.
I ended up taking an internship with regardless of your political opinion, but it was with Donald Trump. And the people that I met, it was absolutely amazing. And then I ended up interning for the founder of Build-A-Bear. And then I was there, and I would like sit in at like NFL headquarter meetings, and I would.
You've done a lot.
And according to her father, Lee Allen, she was a hard worker who had devoted herself to Trump early on in the campaign. In an interview, he described his daughter as a relentless self-advocate who, at the age of 14, once called the president of Harvard University to ask advice on how to get into the school, and ended up speaking with her for 10 minutes before being referred to the admissions office. A person familiar with the matters at Harvard has no records of the call, and that the former president, Drew Gilpin Faust, also had no recollection of it.
The story is baloney.
That boldness emerged again in October 2015, when Allen went to a Trump rally in Richmond, Virginia. As Allen recalled, his daughter hustled to be near Trump's motorcade, where she met an elderly Filipino lady named Angelica George, a local enthusiastic campaign volunteer. Soon walked by and spotted them. He said, "Angelica, what are you doing here?" Allen said. So he comes over and she introduces Anne to Trump, and it's a very quick thing. And then the lady says, "Look, I know the chairman in charge of the Trump campaign in Virginia. I want you to contact him and tell him I sent you." Uh-oh, but are we noticing a pattern here? A former Virginia Trump campaign official disputed Allen's Trump origin story as told by her father. Are we surprised?
While the characters are fictional, I'd like to think the story could be true.
It's just nonsense. The candidate did not personally know George. There's no Virginia campaign chairman at this point. Allen just walked into the Richmond office and said she wanted to be a volunteer. In a follow-up interview, Lee Allen stood by the account and said, "The story never changed from day one, but whatever."
Stop fucking lying.
George didn't respond to requests for comments, and Christianne also said that the story was inaccurate and that she had tried to correct her father before. So even Christianne is saying that this story isn't true and that she has tried multiple times to correct her dad. I think that perhaps maybe lying runs in the family and they just can't stop. This much is undisputed. Allen soon left public high school to work for the campaign without pay, enrolling in Liberty University online to complete her high school degree. But she quickly gained a reputation for inflating her importance.
I ended up interning for the founder of Build-A-Bear. I'd sit in at NFL headquarter meetings and I would...
Okay, you got a lot. I forget all the titles she told me she had. She was millennials for this or teens for this, one former official said. At one point, her social media accounts claimed that she was an official spokeswoman for the Trump campaign. She was not, according to these officials. Allen's involvement with the Trump Virginia campaign effectively ended the night Trump won the primary in March of 2016, but she still found ways to express her loyalty to Trump. Her most important relationship, however, would be with the lawyer Charles Gucciardo, whom she said she met while attending a law seminar for high school students at Stanford University prior to her involvement in the Trump campaign. He eventually offered her an internship at his Long Island law firm. Years later, Gucciardo would be pulled into the Ukraine scandal when he invested $500,000 into a company started by Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, the two men who went to Ukraine to dig up dirt on Hunter Biden based on Giuliani's involvement in said company. During one appearance at a Moms for Trump event in October 2016 at the Trump Hotel in DC, Allen gave a speech about how she had been hounded out of high school due to controversy over my Trump internship. In a video of her speech, Allen described telling her principal, counselors, and friends about her decision to support Trump, and I can't even begin to tell you the controversy that got stirred up and the hate that just got sent my way, not just through social media, but through just... She trailed off for several seconds. It was really hard for me, especially when all your friends just dropped out of your life all at once. Persecution complex. But asked if anti-Trump bullying was a major factor in her leaving high school, her father said, "I don't think so. She's a fighter." On social media, she would counter everybody that was negative towards Trump. Did she run from it? No, but she got fed up with it. I never heard of any anti-Trump bullying or political bullying of any kind for that matter. At Allen's high school, Clover Hill, said Becky Connor, whose son Evan was a classmate of Allen's and was her partner in driver's ed. Connor also said that Evan didn't remember her ever complaining about being bullied. Somehow, during all this time, Allen put even more bona fides on her resume. According to an old bio on her website, she was going to launch a beauty line called Christianne and a PR firm called Allen Strategies, neither of which seemed to get off the ground. In a text, Allen also mentioned that she was the executive marketing director for a subscription box service for CBD products called Discovery Club, business that actually did exist, if only for a short period of time. Cedrina Ward, a CBD distributor based out of Las Vegas, worked on Discovery Club with the Allens starting in September of 2016 after they moved to Nevada to launch the venture. While Lee kept trying to convince investors to join him in the company, Allen filmed testimonials and reached out to social media influencers in an attempt to get them to link to their subscription page. From start to finish, the Vegas endeavor, which contemplated a reality TV show, High Stakes, chronicling their attempt to launch the business, lasted for 3 months. It was a startup that tanked on me, simple as that, because I couldn't get the rest of the capital together, said Lee. The business soon ran out of money and they left Las Vegas, breaking a year-long lease on a 7-bedroom house where they'd planned to shoot the show. That's just business, my friend, he said. Oh, breaking a year-long lease on a 7-bedroom house? Huh, that's funny because here Christianne claimed that they bought the house. She told these people interviewing her on the podcast that they owned this house, that they bought this house to lower their taxes on doing the business, but apparently they were renting it and they broke the lease. She attempted to start the business again, but the Discovery Club's websites and e-commerce stores have gone dark. Ward said she and her Vegas colleagues were never paid. Her personal social media accounts, meanwhile, were soaring. Allen garnered tens of thousands of followers for her carefully curated pro-Trump content. See, she's really good at building profiles. I wonder where Estee learned it. Portraits of her attending right-wing galas, wearing MAGA hats, posing with guns, including a semi-automatic AR-15, and repeatedly visiting the White House at least 4 times in April 2018 alone, including for the Easter egg roll on the South Lawn, according to her Instagram account. Much of the account shows a gallery of a young influencer living her best life, posing in a helicopter, staying in luxury hotels, trailing Trump in Paris as he visited Emmanuel Macron, flaunting a 5800 Chanel bag, and posting the occasional inspirational quote. Shortly after Politico began reporting the story, several photos began disappearing from her accounts. Interesting. Allen describes herself on Twitter as being part of the Trump Victory Committee, but a person familiar with the matter said that anyone can sign up online to become a volunteer fundraiser for the committee. Allen, who said she had already raised almost $30,000 for the committee, and yet still no money raised for the workers your father scammed, allegedly. Where is their money? Anyway, Allen, she hasn't raised enough to hit the committee's quote, member level, said the person. In May of 2019, Allen's influencing hustle paid off when she was appointed an unpaid Turning Point USA ambassador, a coveted title among pro-Trump activists that opened doors for her career and allowed her to meet high-profile conservatives and administration officials. According to Allen, she began interviewing with Giuliani for her current job in September, which entailed a vague set of duties. The position I currently hold requires you to wear many hats. Each day is incredibly fluid and never the same twice. She did not reply when asked to elaborate. When reports emerged in late September that Giuliani had run a shadow campaign to persuade Ukrainian officials to fire then Ambassador Marie Yovanovitch and investigate the Bidens, Allen initially took to Twitter to defend him and threaten lawmakers with legal retribution. Whatever her strategy to defend her boss, it seems to be the exact opposite of keeping him disciplined and on message. As mayor, this person said, no reporter usually ever contacted Giuliani directly on his personal cell phone. Things are distinctly different now. Furious, impulsive texts with reporters at odd hours, frequent accidental phone calls, and increasingly self-destructive appearances on television, angering top Republicans and sometimes even Trump himself. That's the Giuliani of today, and the Giuliani that Allen is letting onto the airways. Perhaps a more experienced hand could have restrained him, but Allen might be the best he can get at this juncture, given his volatility and toxicity. It's funny in a sad kind of way. Yeah, there were also a couple articles saying that Rudy Giuliani had said that he had a certain sexual attraction to Christianne and that he had fantasized about her and kissed her on the lips, but that they had never consummated their relationship, according to one of the lawsuits that he's involved with. And that pretty much sums up Christianne. So where do we go from here? The broader thesis of this video was to look beneath the surface, to dig deeper into the personas, into the images, into everything that you see online. If someone is selling you a lifestyle, why? What do they have to gain from it? What are their connections? Look under the mask. It's common for Tradwife influencers to bring you into their world by showing you cute dresses and cookie recipes, and then to lead you down a pipeline. You may start with a cookie recipe, but by watching their videos, you slowly fall more and more and more into fascism. I made a Matrix reference at the beginning of this video. The truth is, these Tradwife influencers that your average red pillar will defend in the comments is a simulation in its own right. The life they are showing you isn't real, and she would never look at you in real life. It's a fantasy, and a lucrative one at that. At the end of the day, it's just you, alone in your room, looking at a screen, feeling like you're being productive by defending what you see on that screen. But it isn't real life. You don't need to go into much detail as I did with researching the Allens. I fell into this rabbit hole by accident, but the point illustrated is that in general, you should look deeper into the connections that people have. Estee and her sister and their connections to Turning Point USA and Turning Point USA's broader influence over our politics, it's something to look at. It's something to question. There's a reason why they say, give them bread and circuses and they will never revolt. This is all bread and circuses. This seems to be a family affair, and I just want to make it clear that just because someone's parents do something, that doesn't have to mean anything about their children. But based on what I'm seeing and understanding, it is a family affair. But in some ways, while researching this, I actually did feel bad for Estee, and maybe she does want something different than how she was raised. It can't be easy having a dad who views you as a potential source of income and who can't remember the year you were born.
You were born in December 96, right?
No, Sam was born in
He was January 96.
Estee is December of 97.
It can't be easy having a dad go on and on publicly about this Christmas book he wrote for his children when he never, ever even took the time to read it to you as a child.
Do you have a favorite moment or in that story?
Well, actually, my husband and I are just now reading it together.
Okay.
Never read it, so.
But he will ask you to promote it. That's genuinely sad. But Estee has chosen to play along and to promote harmful messages along the way. But it wasn't feminism that destroyed your family, Estee. It was your dad. And it isn't feminism that is, quote, destroying the West. It's the charlatans banking off of your rage and dividing us.
So there's always been this, to me, very mysterious scripture in Hebrews, the Bible, New Testament Hebrews, Hebrews 13:2 actually, and it says, "Don't forget to be kind to strangers, for some who've done so have entertained angels unawares." Well, the thing that's so odd about it, it's like that verse is just dropped in there with no context around it, and it's like, okay, but think how profound that is. That you could be entertaining an angel